Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. John Mason. I'm with Masters of the Journey. Today we have our special guest, Ayesha Ashley. Ayesha wanted to share some information that I think has real value, and I'm sure she's going to tell you all about it. The importance of knowing yourself is such a huge quality to develop. And today she wants to share information and background about something that she's been using and teaching for years. It is called the Myers Briggs Temperament Inventory. I'd like to just welcome you, Ayesha, and I really am excited to hear what you have to say so that I can learn something about myself and realize how I am and why I am doing the things in the world that I do. Ayesha.
Thank you so much. Almost all of the spiritual teachers that I know of, starting especially with Gurdjieff, they all say, know yourself. And the question is, how do you know yourself? Well, you get information from people who talk to you, oh, you're so noisy, or you're so, extroverted. You get all that information from people, but there is a way to get it in a very easy and simple way that will organize all your information. You will know who you are easily and quickly. And it's all in a book that I have used for years, teaching this to teachers, because teachers have to understand their students in order to be able to connect with them correctly. And I'll just give you the name of the book. It's on Amazon. It's called Please Understand Me, and the authors are Kiersey and Bates. It's a big $19 on Amazon, but it will give you more information than you have ever had about yourself, about your parents, about your kids, about your friends, about everybody you know. And it's just amazing information. I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not going to sneeze. Okay. Well, hopefully you will take a look at this, and I'm going to explain to you what the types are, and I'm sure you can find yourself amongst these types. That's what this is about. If you get the book, they give you a test, which if you answer the questions, you get 4 letters. Okay, my letters are ENFP. And you'll get your 4 letters, and then you look in the back of the book and read what the analysis is of that. And you will think these people have been following you around, noticing your behavior. It's that accurate. It's amazingly accurate. So
What does the assessment look like? How long does it take so that you can get your letters?
it's a test of about maybe 125 very simple questions. Yes, no, yes, no. You can go through it very easily. You get your 4 letters, you look it up in the table of contents. I look up ENFP, it's on page whatever it is. I don't have the book anymore. I gave it away because it's one of those books I like to give to people. And when you turn to the page where it has your letters, you're going to be astounded. Like I say, you're going to think these people have been following you around. So what is it that this can tell you? Well, according to the Myers Briggs, and I've taught this to teachers for many years because teachers have to understand where their students are so they can teach them effectively. So there are 2 kinds of really important differences amongst people. One is the people who have an S in their letters. And if you have an S, you are what's called a censor, okay? And a censor is a person who is very much where the rubber meets the road. They're practical, actual, factual. Censors want to know what's, they just give them the essentials, And there's 2 types. There's an SP, because the censors are 75% of the population. So 3/4 of the people you meet are going to be one of these types. The SP is 37, half of it, 37%, and their motto is just do it. Just do it. Don't think about it, don't plan about it, don't research it, just do it. And for the SP, it's all about fun. If it's fun, just do it. Don't worry about it. You want to do skydiving? Don't worry about jumping out of a plane at 3,000 feet. You know, just do it. It's fun. You're going to fly. Maybe. You know, and the SP people, because if they love something, they are going to just do it. Sometimes they don't think about the consequences. So they love fun things. So that also includes drugs and maybe lots of, casual sex, right? And adventures that get them into trouble because they are very impulsive. I'll give you an idea. My father was an SP. My mother was 9 months pregnant with me. They were living in New York. And one day he says, let's go take a ride upstate and see what's upstate. So they take a drive. And yes, I was born in White Plains. My mother went into labor on this trip that they took spontaneously because he wanted to do it. And I was born far away from where they lived. That's SP stuff. So they're unpredictable. They're very spontaneous. They love good times. They're a lot of fun. And sometimes they can get you into trouble, if you follow them all the way. So I'm going to sneeze. So if you have an SP friend, and you probably do, they're always busy doing something. And this is what I call the A team: artists, adventurers, athletes, right? They're the A team. They're always busy doing something, and they're always busy, practicing what they're good at. So as an athlete, they'll practice their game until they're really expert. And if you're looking for someone to explore Africa to find gold or oil, you want an SP because they're ready to go into the wilds and explore, and they're not afraid of adventure. They're not afraid of whatever's going to happen. They're very spontaneous. They're right in the moment, and they love adventure. So if an SP becomes part of the police, say, they're going to be on a SWAT team. If an SP joins the Army or the Marines, they're going to be Green Berets. They're going to be the ones that go out and do the really difficult and dangerous stuff because it's exciting. It's a challenge. They love it. So chances are, an SP. Like I said, they're not really keen on school because they have to sit like a prisoner at their desk. They're not doing. So I used to tell teachers, if you have an SP and he's bored, give him something to do with his hands. If you're teaching math, give him blocks to work with. If you're doing something, give him something to construct or do so that he can be part of the action. And it's not just it's she's too. I mean, it's boys and girls. So if you know an SP in your family and you know that they're likely to take chances, if they're in the hospital, it's probably because they've fallen in some kind of adventure that they've had. And that's kind of the pattern of their lives. So there's another type of S, and that's the SJ. Okay. And the SJ is a totally different kind of person. The SJ is a person who wants you to do whatever you're doing the right way. And that's probably their way. So remember when you were in grade school, the teacher said your name goes on the upper left-hand side and the date goes on the right side, and you have to do it this way and it's alphabetized or whatever the rules were. The SJ is here to see that you obey the rules, and they don't like the SJs who tend to come in late because they're busy with an adventure, right? These are opposites. The SJ says, be predictable, do the right thing, follow the rules. And the SJ says, the heck with your rules. If it's fun, I'm going to do it. So they don't tend to get along too well. And at the same time, they are opposites, which means they attract. Hi, my cat. He's an SP. Anyway, he does what he wants. So the SJs are likely to be police people, accountants, people who structure things. They're the ones who write the rule books for when you get a job, you get a 400-page book of rules. It's usually made by the SJs in the department, that makes up these books. So two very different types. And the chances are some SJs, because remember, these two types are 75% of the population. So an SJ. Now, my mother was an SJ. She had rules and regs, and God help you if you didn't obey. It was very clear, you got corrections, and I told you not to do that, and, don't do it again or else. My father was an SP, like I said. He took my mother on this spontaneous trip, and I was born way out of where they were in White Plains, far from home. So these two people are the majority of the population. Do you have any questions about SPs and SJs at all, John?
Not really. You're giving us the great background about them, and we have to figure out how it all fits together.
Right. Well, the chances are you have one of these at least in your life that you have. I have a friend who's an SP. She moved to Ecuador because of the adventure of blending into a new society, a different language, a big adventure. And she moved lock, stock, and barrel to Ecuador, and she loves it. It's not for everybody, but it's for SPs. And SJs, you'll find them everywhere, making structure, accountants, people who are making the rules for an organization, police people, and a lot of people in your life that just somehow let you know when you're doing something that's not right. They will surely let you know. I have a daughter who's an SJ. She's very clear about things that I do that she thinks are not right, and she lets me know. And I understand who she is, so I say, okay, that's what an SJ does. So this is the majority of the population, 75%. And we'll talk more about how they are. Now, one of the things I want to say is your type is visible in everything you do. So, for example, look at your clothing. SPs, what do they wear? They're always ready to do something interesting. So they probably are wearing sneakers and athletic clothes. They're ready to get out and do a run or, do something adventurous. The SJs, they want to know the dress code for where they're working. And believe me, they are going to be dressed the way it's supposed to be. And they'll make sure they let you know if you're not following the dress code. So try to identify the people in your life that you recognize as SPs or SJs. If you have an SP kid, they probably don't like school. They probably don't do so well in school because it feels like prison to them. They can't get up and move and do. And I used to tell my teachers, if you have an SP student that's disconnected, give them something to do with their hands. Make sure they have a project to do, something they can work on and make happen, because that's how they learn, by doing. And if you have an SJ student, you just have to remind them of the rules. Right? No talking. Yeah, and they get it. And the SJs, if you want to help an SJ learn, you give them an organized outline. Read these pages, answer questions 1 through 5, read this section, write a short paragraph. Everything has to be very organized so they know exactly what to do in the right place. So, John, do you recognize some SJs in your life?
Definitely. I know people that are rule followers, and I know the opposite, which I tend to fall into myself.
Well, I mean, we'd have to, I can probably figure out what your type is. I'm an ENFP, so those don't mean anything to you, but I'll explain what they are. So the first letter in your 4 letters is either an E or an I. E for extrovert, I for introvert. So John, you know exactly what I am already.
You're an extrovert.
Totally. I'm a terminal extrovert. I can talk to my cat. He looks bored, but I talk to him anyway.
Yes.
And introverts tend to be the ones who leave the party early and, they just want to get home and relax and process. Whereas the extrovert will stay on until the last dance and enjoy all of the company. So that's your first letter, E or I. Now decide what you are. What are you, John?
Definitely an E.
Definitely. I've watched you monitor the meetings, and you're a total E. Yeah, loves interacting with people, is easy about conversing, and is not upset about having to lead things. It's exactly right. You're an E. So the next letter in the four letters. If you're an I, remember, you love to be alone. If you've been in meetings, you go home and relax and get over it, process and relax and just calm down. So you're done with all that interacting, which is kind of stressful for introverts. So the next letter that comes up in your four letters is either an S, which I told you about. These people are sensors, where the rubber meets the road. They want to know facts, what's actual, what's practical. And you have the two types, SPs and SJs, and we'll talk about that. And the other type is called an intuitive. That's your second letter. And if you have an N in your second letter, you are an intuitive. And intuitives want to know why and what if. And they're only 25% of the population. So most of the people you meet are sensors, 75%. The intuitives are 25%. And the N means they're asking the questions, why? Why does this happen? What if I do this? What does it mean if? What if we change this? So NF, that's what I am, 12.5%, because there's only 25% of us. You don't meet, so 1/8 of the people you meet would probably be NFs. And my motto is, who am I and why am I here? So NFs are people who are interested in spiritual development. They're interested in things like social work, psychology, psychiatry. They want to know how people work, how to understand people, how to help people through their problems. And that's what the NFs are. I suspect that that Jesus was an NF. I mean, he says in the New Testament, whatsoever you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. And that's the typical NF stance. Empathy. If you treat another person badly, you are treating me badly. The other type, the other 12.5% is the NT. And NF means you're an intuitive feeler, and most women are feelers. There are some men who are feelers, but most women are feelers. The NT, most of them are men, because men are thinkers, statistically. And there are some women NTs. The NT is the one who wants to know everything about the world, everything. And their motto is, knowledge is power. And I advise you never to get into a debate with an NT, because they will leave you on the floor gasping. They know more than you do about everything, because they're always researching. They are always asking the questions. What's the cause of this? And they are the scientists. So the typical NT would be Einstein, Bohr, all of the science, Newton, all the people you know as the great Madame Curie, because they're asking the questions about everything. At what temperature does water boil? And does it matter if the air pressure is different? Questions like that. Questions you probably never think to ask because you're not interested. But the NT wants to know everything. And they end up knowing an awful lot. So if you're an NF, you're usually probably empathetic, concerned about people, social. You want to understand people. You want them to understand themselves, hence my teaching about this. If you're an NT, you are interested in the scientific world. You want to know everything about the world. How does it function? What are the important questions to ask? How do I find this out? What's the structure of DNA? Well, let's make up an experiment. How do we begin? And so forth. And this is how science advances through the NTs. And there's only 1 in 8 people who fit into this. right? Any questions about NTs? I'm sure you know an NF and an NT. Well, you know an NF because I'm an NF. Are you an NT or an NF, you think?
Well, I'm a little confused. I would definitely say historically I'm an NT because I used to be very rational and demanding. And now I also fall into why am I here and I'm empathetic. So for me, it's a little bit unclear, but I would go with NT um, because I think that knowledge is power,
Yes,
even though I'm always asking for more knowledge about why I am here.
of course. And that would be an NT. And you've written a book and books. And so NTs tend to write books because they get the chance to spread their knowledge all over the page and help other people to make connections and learn.
Hmm.
And that would fit you perfectly. And so the NFs would be people who, like social workers and psychologists and people who want to help you, and and also people who are interested in spiritual growth. And NTs are interested in spiritual growth too, but for different reasons. Okay?
Yeah.
So think about your friends. Surely you have friends who are NFs or NTs. Somebody who is a super science weenie, an NF, the super caring. And your behavior is reflected, your type is reflected in every one of your behaviors. So let's take an SP. Say the SP is in a hospital because he fell down jumping off an airplane and landed wrong and broke a leg. So he's in the hospital. And all he wants to do is get up and walk around because he hates being stuck in the bed, right? The SJ, if they tell the SJ that they have to take a pill at 3 in the morning, they will wake up and take a pill at 3 in the morning, even if it interrupts their sleep. If you're an NF in the hospital, the nurse comes in, you want to say, "How are you doing, sweetie? It's 3 in the morning. How are you feeling?" If you're an NT and the doctor comes in and says, "I want you to take this drug," the NT is likely to say, "Really, I read some research about that, and there's a better drug for that. In England, they use such and such and such." And they will confront the doctor with their information. Do you get a picture of how this shows your behavior in every moment? How you dress, how you talk, how you interact with people, your interests, the kinds of things you research, and your behavior. It's all of these type situations are reflected in your type. You can't miss it. If you know how to recognize it, you can spot it. Okay?
Yeah.
So I don't have to give somebody a test. I have a friend who's a clear SP, spontaneous, loves to do things. I mean, it's SP in every dimension. And I have a lot of friends. I would suspect you are an NT, John. And, fine. I kind of have a sense of who they are. But here the thing is really important. This is about you. Gurdjieff said, "Know thyself." And he said, "Observe yourself." Well, that's not so easy because you have to be in the middle of your day and you have to stop and take a kind of overall picture. What am I feeling? What am I doing? What am I thinking? It's much easier to discover your type and to read all about your goals, your motto, what you love to do, and how you interact, and you'll have all of the information you need. Not only that, but if you get the book, which is where all this information is, it's a little book. I used to use it when I taught my teachers. It's called Please Understand Me by Kiersey and Bates. It's a big $19 on Amazon. You can read the reviews, which are pretty uniformly good. And in the beginning, it gives you the Myers Briggs quiz. You answer every question as honestly as you can because you want to find out the truth about yourself. And then you turn to the page, which, I'm an ENFP, so I look up ENFP and it gives me a page. And I read the analysis of what it is. And I think these people have been following me. They know exactly what I do and how I think. And that's what you will find. And you will also be able to recognize your parents. So my mother was an SJ and my father was an SP. That was very interesting. And opposites tend to attract. So a lot of my relationships have been with NTs and NFs, because they tend to ask deep questions, but about different things. The NF wants to know about humans, the NT about the world, more or less. In your case, when you talk about stress relief in psychology, that's also much more abstract than the kinds of things that I ask. So, any questions so far?
Just want to see how it all fits together.
Well, it all fits together because when you find out your type, you understand so many of your motivations and how you have behaved in your life, so much about the kinds of people you attract and the kinds of people you like. You learn so much about the people that you don't like, the people that you have difficulty with. You learn about the partners you've chosen. Okay, in my case, I've chosen mostly NT partners. Okay, and that fits because opposites attract. So if you're an SP, you probably choose an SJ. If you're an NF, you choose an NT, and vice versa. And this gives you a clue about so many parts of your life. It also tells you the way in which you react to so many things. So an NF, let's say you're an NF like I am, okay, and you're only 1 in 8 people, but NFs, mostly women, some men. And if you're in a conflict situation, the NF wants to make sure that the relationship is healed. Okay, so the NF is trying to figure out how to heal the relationship, to keep it going, to make sure everybody gets what they need. The NT wants to win the argument, right? Knowledge is power. And so you just need to recognize who your partner is and how they're going to deal with arguments or difficulties. If you're an SP, your tendency is, I'm done with this. I'm going to go out and do some skydiving, or I'm going to ski, or I'm going to take a hike. They would rather do some kind of activity than sit there and argue with you. And if you're an SJ, you just wish that you could tell the people the right way to behave so that they would only be a good person. So when you discover what your parents are, you can see how their standards and their personalities influenced how they treated you. My mother was a strict SJ. She wouldn't put up with anything that wasn't in her list of the right way to do things. So I got a lot of corrections, right? My father was much more easygoing, but he was also the kind of person who could change his attitude on a dime. He could switch his feelings. 1 minute he's okay, and the next minute he's like ready to hit me. So knowing your type explains so much of who you are. So you can tell, right, just from looking at what we're talking about today, just look at the mottos. Is your motto, who am I and why am I here? Is the thing that moves you, knowledge is power? Is the thing that moves you, if you love it, just do it? Don't ask about it, just do it. Or are you interested in making sure that you or other people do things the right way and don't break any rules? It's a very simple situation. You can tell who your friends are. And it gives you a clear idea of who they are and how you can deal with them. So as an NF, I'm interested in maximizing my interactions with the different types. Okay. If I'm with an NT, I know they're an NT. I'm happy to discuss theoretical stuff with them. I love learning. And they love learning too. If I'm talking to an SP, I understand their need for action and doing and challenge, right? An SP wants to be challenged. So who wants to try skydiving? I'll do it. Ever done it? No. It's a little dangerous. Don't care. Is it fun? I mean, I could be flying like a bird. What fun is that? And, if somebody's constantly talking to you about rules, they're an SJ. You're not going to ever convince them that what you want to do is okay unless it's on their list of what's right and wrong. So you avoid those. You avoid those arguments. You don't want to have to deal with that. Or you make some kind of compromise. If there is somebody who's an administrator over you in your job, you learn their rules and make sure that as much as possible you are accommodating them, because they're your supervisor. They give you your recommendations, right? You're not your evaluations. Now, I taught this to teachers because every type learns differently. So if you're an NT, you absorb knowledge like a sponge. Give me a book to read, I'll know all about it by the end of the book. Am I right, John? I just want the facts. Lay it out, explain it to me. I get it. I want a system. I want to understand the mechanics of this. So explain it to me and I'll get it. For the NF, it's about understanding people and how they work and how they can maximize their behavior and understanding so that their life works for them, right? I want everybody to understand how they work so they can maximize the good events in their life. If you're an NF, what's important to you is good relationships. So you have to know who your relationships are with. If you have a child who's an SP, you're going to have a lot of moments of anxiety as they go off, skydiving, but you're not going to convince them not to. And you just have to deal with that, right?
So there's also extremes on any of these personality types.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess the extreme of the NF would be the empath. I'm an empath. I can feel what other people are feeling. Not every NF is an empath, but if you can feel that, it helps you to understand the other person. The NF is the expert in relationships. The NT is the expert in science and knowledge. The SJ is an expert in the rules and regs and doing things the right way. They want to find the best way to do something, and that's the right way. The SP is the expert in exploration and adventure, discovery, and yes, risk. In fact, a lot of SPs get in trouble with the law because part of their pleasure seeking might involve drugs or some adventure that's not quite legal. So SPs tend to get a little difficulty with the law. Well, we can all get into difficulty with the law, but the SPs probably more often than the others. Yeah.
Okay. So are there other letters that go along with the Myers Briggs, or have we covered all the letters so far?
These are all the letters. So you get 4 letters. So I'm an NF. So what's added to the NF is the E part that says extrovert, right? So I'm an E, an extroverted NF, social person. And the last letter of my type is a P, which means I'm present in the moment and spontaneous. So if you have a J, if you're an ENFJ, people with a J, they have everything organized. So they're the people who make lists and they cross the stuff off the list when they're done, right? I used to tell people in my classes, if you're a J, if you're going to Europe, you know the plane, you know exactly when you're going to land, and on Tuesday you're going to be standing in front of the cathedral in Paris at 2:00. You have it all planned out. Now I'm a P. I take a plane towards Europe. Wherever I end up, I just explore when I'm there. I don't have a set schedule. So P's and J's can get annoyed with each other. So if I'm traveling with a J and they say, look, I'll meet you at 3:00 by Notre Dame, I'll say, okay, I'll try to get there, because if I get into a cafe and I'm talking to somebody, I could lose track of time. So these are the other ones. So you have 4 letters: E or I, extrovert or introvert; N, intuitive, or S, solid ground; T, thinker or feeler. And most men are thinkers and most women are feelers, but they have, there's women who are NTs. But this is part of the problem with the relationships between the sexes. So if a woman is an F, she's a feeler, and she's got a problem, she comes to her husband and she says, boy, was I really upset today. I can't believe my friend said XYZ to me. And the husband, instead of just listening and saying, oh, poor thing, you must be upset, which is all she wants validation of her feelings. He says, well, the next time, make sure you say XYZ to her. Well, she doesn't want your solution. She just wants you to notice that she's upset and deal with that. And this is the problem between males and females, because the men are constantly using their thinking to say, well, a better way is to do this. And
That sounds like the first 5 years of my marriage. Exactly. I solved a lot of problems that didn't want to be solved.
Yeah, but well, once you understand that men are thinkers, and men understand that they need to notice that the woman wants validation of her feelings, she doesn't need you to solve her problem. That will solve an awful lot of what goes on between the sexes, the misunderstandings. So this is very valuable in terms of relationships, how you deal with other people, and especially your intimate relationships, where these rules really count. And it helps to know your type and the type of your partner. Because say you're an NT and say you have a partner who's an SJ, right? It happens. And they have a list of rules about do's and don'ts. And as an NT, you're busy in your mind exploring the universe. And occasionally you will break one of the rules and you'll hear about it. So you get to deal with it. But you understand it's coming from this mindset of these are the rules.
If people have awareness about their styles or characteristics, is this something that we can alter or change?
Well, you can tell the Myers Briggs pretty early in children. They show up pretty early in your life. You can change, but it's pretty rare. I mean, you have to do a lot of work on yourself to change. For example, when I was being raised, I didn't want to feel my emotions. My parents were so dangerous. I didn't want to feel the fear I felt all the time. So I lost myself in books. So for the first 30 years of my life, I was an NT. All I wanted to do was learn, right? Knowledge is power. When I got to be 30, I realized that my feelings were really the main part of myself. And that's when I began to change and discovered I was an NF and learned about the Myers Briggs and said, aha, I get it. It's very important to know your type, because you can tell who you are. You can tell how other people see you. You can tell how other people are, what they need to give to you, and you know what to ask for, right? So if you have an SJ who's always telling you what's right and wrong, you can actually talk to them and say, look, I never want to break your rules, but please realize that I'm concerned with the quality of our relationship. And if I make a mistake, please be gentle with me. I don't mean to mess up. And see if that doesn't create a little more space for you. I mean, you can use this every minute of your life.
Good.
Any more questions?
Not at this point, because I'm interested at some point probably to take the test, to get my letters and to study up on them, to see exactly why I react and think the way that I do, and see if this explains some of that to me in a way, like you said, of helping me to know myself.
Well, I can tell you your letters. You're an extrovert. I believe you're an intuitive. I think you're an NT, which is always about, questions. I want to know everything, right? Knowledge is power. And then I don't know whether you're spontaneous or planned. Are you somebody who has a list of things to do, or you're pretty spontaneous?
I have lists. I do have lists, so I'm probably less spontaneous.
So you would be an ENTJ. ENTJ. And these people are usually entrepreneurs. The ENT is very interesting. Entrepreneurs, people who, have businesses and structures. And ENTJs are usually very successful because they're organized. Now, I'm a P, I'm not organized. If you didn't say when we were going to do this and plan it and set it up, I would not be the one to do that. You have that. But I'm spontaneous and I'm ready to do it anytime you are. So ENTJs are very successful people. They are organized. They are knowledgeable. They can convey that what they know to others. You'd be a great teacher if you wanted to be. So yeah, I mean, it's a great one. You can look, in fact, you probably could just look it up. I haven't tried this, but you could probably look up ENTJ. What does it mean? Myers Briggs, and they'll give you, or get the book. I think you would love the book.
Based on what you just described, I would say that that does say who I am
Yeah.
as I come across to myself out in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. You're an ENTJ. And as a P, I'm an NF, right? So it's all about people and relationships. As a P, I'm spontaneous. So of course I taught comedy improv, where you are improvising every minute, right? It's all spontaneous, right in the moment. And that's quite different from a J, who's organized and has plans and follows them. I tend to be, distractible, like an SP. So if somebody calls me up and says, do you want to do X this afternoon, and it appeals to me, I'm likely to do it.
Good. Well, this is a great start on discovering who I am and giving me an assessment that can help me pin some of that information down in a way where I can relate or interact with other people in with a little bit more knowledge, and not with just hurt feelings when they don't do it the way I do it.
Well, let me tell you something. As an NT, you have way more knowledge than most people. Like I said, don't ever debate with an NT. They will floor you because they know twice as much as you know. So, and you also expect people to be curious and knowledgeable as you are, but not everybody is, right? SPs are interested in adventure. They don't give a damn about your theories. They might say to you, so you have a lot of knowledge. So what does it feel like to jump out of an airplane? And you say, well, I don't know. So much for your knowledge, So the NT is an avid reader, researcher, always questioning, abstract. The NF is always looking for better ways to interact with people and to help people understand who they are. The SP is always looking for a new hobby or activity that's going to give him kicks. And the SJ is always monitoring other people to make sure they're following the rules. So depending on who you have as a supervisor in your work, you're going to have to deal with these features. There's no substitute for knowing yourself, but you'll also know about your friends, about your partners, about your parents, about your children. You'll have an insight into them that's incredible. I have a daughter who's, is an SJ, and she's not at all shy about telling me where I don't match up to her rules. And that's fine. I know who she is.
Mhm.
That's great.
But I'm glad I don't have a daughter like that, though. Just personally, uh, but that doesn't mean that I don't have a daughter. So I have a daughter-in-law, but not no daughter. Thank you very much for this insight, this introduction to the Myers Briggs temperament inventory. I think that it's a good starting place for people to find out, and maybe they are curious and want to find out more. That one book that you offered was a good chance to get some basic information. Please Understand Me. You can find it on Amazon or probably order it through other sources as well if you're not an Amazonian. Okay,
Well,
that was a
yeah,
joke.
I get it. But this is a great book. It's a thin book. It's easy to read. The test is very straightforward. You just get yes or no answers, and they'll give you your 4 letters. You look it up and you go, holy moly, these people have been following me. And then you look up the other people in your life. And once you get a sense of who's who and what's what, you will understand your relationships in a way you never have before.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your time and your expertise. Uh, and this is a useful tool and a good starting place for a lot of people. Some people are familiar with this and they have a little bit of background, so that for those people, it might be, a good way of, remembering or reiterating some stuff that we've already run across. Really appreciate your time, Ayesha. Thank you so much for that. Is there anything you want to say for us in closing?
Just what I wish for you is more self-knowledge, more insight, more understanding of your relationships, what they offer you, what parts of them are irritating, all of the other stuff that's connected with relationships, so that your life may be more fulfilling, more conscious, more pleasurable.
Those are a good way to end. I really appreciate your time. So for now, we'll be signing off, and we'll have more information, perhaps more videos for you in the future. Hope you can stick with us. Hope you enjoyed this. Is there any way that people should get in touch with you in case they have questions?
They can call me. My phone number is 406 570 6705. And the best time to get me is before 10 p.m. and after 9 a.m. So I'm free and love to talk to you and elaborate or just have a chance to get to know you better.
Great. And timing wise, we're on the Pacific coast, so
Right.
it would be in the Pacific time zone. Thank you once again, and it was a pleasure listening to your presentation, and it was thought provoking. I appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Thanks so much, John. Always a pleasure.